Greetings and welcome to Star Trek Discovery Pod, a sometimes funny, trying to be smart podcast covering all things new and classic Trek. Sarcastic Vulcan salute. I am your captain, Myrriah Gossa, and with me on the view screen we have
Clyde Haynes, yo, what would life be like for me as an Orion? I don't know. I mean,
questions,
I'm
ponderings.
bald, so I just
You
kind
would
of wonder. Like,
be a
green.
pheromone slave.
I can
That's
think
what
of a
that's
lot,
what
a
that's
lot
what
worse
you'd
jobs.
be. You'd be pheromoned out.
Did you want to
Oh,
Not a bad
introduce
life.
yourself?
oh, and I'm Paul.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Paul. Hi, Clyde. We're back. We took a couple of weeks off.
Work week.
El
Work.
Capitan.
Yeah.
There was a lot of work happening, which is good because work means we can continue to pay for that Paramount plus.
Oh,
And
that was
and
all
and
ad lib,
we.
guys. Myrriah is on it.
It's not
Pew
I'm
just
pew.
that.
I
It's
got a
These
full
stars
Paramount
night's
are gonna
sleep.
all
Plus.
pew pews.
I'm almost done with a really big job. I got a full night's sleep. We don't even know what to do with this version of Mariah.
That's right.
See,
That's
so
right.
what's gonna happen when we all have a good night's sleep? Because I traveled
Whoa.
in from other time zones and I've been up for a long time. So
You know, one day all of the stars will align, and that will be the day the koala comes for us all.
I'm just saying. In the meantime, you get sleep deprived Clyde who says weird things tonight. So buckle up.
I'm ready for weird things because tonight we are catching up. We're going to talk about some prep, some stuff we're going to be doing over the next couple of weeks because unfortunately, the powers that be have said that this is the last season of Lower Decks that we're getting.
Boo.
Yeah, but they're probably gonna like upgrade
Boo.
and become upper decks.
It's true. And I'm very excited about Tawny Newsom's show that she has in development. So I can't be too sad about it. A couple of things. If you're new here, like welcome. If you want to hang out with us as we're getting into Lower Decks, this is a great time to get in because we're going to be talking all Lower Decks for the next 4 weeks in preparation for season 5, which starts on October 24th. I wrote it down. Good job, Myrriah. We're running on all cylinders today.
Two
It's
Um,
and
amazing.
four.
5 seasons
it's
of a cartoon,
5
and
seasons of a cartoon.
yeah, like, and I know it's not Rick and Morty, but like, it's one of those things where like, if someone were to pitch to me, like, hey, here's a Star Trek show, it's a cartoon, and it's a comedy, I go, 5 seasons,
I
as long
mean,
as Discovery, like longer than Picard, longer than
I mean,
it's
here's an interesting thing because I was talking to somebody the other day and different kind of topic, but
mhm,
they were I had went to go see the new Transformers movie
mhm.
and they were
Were
like,
they more
oh
there's
than
man, that's
another
BTI?
so
one.
it
I didn't
was.
even know there was
It's
another new
animated.
Oh
Transformers
yeah.
movie.
Well, that's the
Animated.
thing. So they were like, "Oh, should I see it?" I was like, "Ah, it's fantastic. Like, it's great. It's a prequel. Like, it makes so much makes sense. It's fantastic." And they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna go see it." And I was like, "Yeah." So by the way, it's animated. And they were like, "Oh, well, never mind then." And I was like, "Well, what's
Hmm.
the deal?" They were like, "Animation." And so there's a stigma about animation. So Paul, to your point, when you go, "Oh, it's an animated," it's just like, "Oh, well, it's not." I'm like, Transformers was interesting because I said, "Well, look." It's star studded. You've got all these stars in it, but if it wasn't animated, you would still just hear their voices anyway because it's all CGI for the most part. So what's the difference? I think we see so many things with special effects and stuff now. Animation allows you to do things that you wouldn't normally be able to do. It's the same thing. And so you say pitching a show for 5 seasons with animation, you say longer than Picard. I don't think this is a hot take. Lower Decks much better than most of Picard.
Yeah, I don't
Oh
think
my
that's a hot
god.
take at all.
No,
It,
I
like
do
like it's
remember I wanted to go back in time and like if we can remember because I feel like and I can go back into the pod like archives if you will, but I remember when the show was announced we were all very skeptical because we were like, is this going to be too raunchy? Is this going to really feel like Trek? We had a lot of like, yeah, I like Rick and Morty, but like, do I like Rick and Morty in my Star Trek? And I have to say, as we're going into this 5th season, it's like one of my top, if not the top show a lot of the time. Like depending on my mood, Lower Decks can be my number one Star Trek show.
well, I
yeah,
think
no.
the thing that's really impressed me is I was worried. I particularly I'll say if you go back into the archives, one of the things I'll say is I was concerned about Rick and Morty. because if you watch Rick and Morty is off the rails. It is Adult Swim. It is like it's the jokes are
Dense, alty, crazy, bananas, disgusting, all of the above. Yeah.
above, and they're it's just on repeat everything, and so that didn't have the same vibe that you would expect out of Star Trek, and so but what I will say is, here we are about to do the 5th season. This doesn't feel like Rick and Morty, right? It's taking some of the best parts of Rick and Morty, the jokes, the timing, some of that pacing, but this is Star Trek. Like it feels mechanical Star Trek to me.
And so that people know, we know that Mike McMahon isn't the creator of Rick and Morty, but he did work on Rick and Morty and was like
Yes.
one of the key pieces of that ingredient. So I think when this show was announced, that was definitely something that was top of mind. Paul, you were not with us when we started our recapping of Lower Decks, but if you can go back into your memory archives, do you remember what you initially thought about the announcement for Lower Decks?
I thought that it was dumb. Flat out dumb.
You thought what was like
the idea
when
of it?
they announced the idea of like a Star
the
Trek
idea?
of comic Star Trek, I got like, oh, they are really doing this money grab. Ugh, like this is so. Have they run out of so many ideas? Like they're just out of it. Like like, oh, we're just gonna make it, and I have to say that like I was from like I think from like the second episode, I was like, oh, this is excellent. Like as far as quality, like like you go like, oh, I know what this show is. I know it's I know what it's going to be, and I go, I'm in for it. I'm in for the ride very quickly in a way that I don't think I was for any of the other Star Trek. Strange New Worlds aside, Strange New Worlds.
I will say, Paul, you bring up this true point. It took me a minute to get into Rick and Morty, right? Like I had friends who were like, "Oh, you should check out Rick and Morty." And I watched an episode, and I was like, "What is this nonsense?" And they were like, "No, you got to keep watching." And it's one of those things. I think I got to like the 4th episode, and I laughed, and I was like, "Oh, this is interesting." So I was skeptical coming into this, and you say the 2nd episode. It's hard for me to quite remember. I kind of now want to go back and rewatch the 1st season, but I think I was in at episode 1, like, oh no, I kind of dig this. Like,
yeah, no, I mean, like, it was
and it just
quick.
grew. It just got deeper and deeper for me.
Yeah, no, like I remember when I remember the episode where I go like, oh, I hope this lasts forever, and that was like the floating dog episode, the dog episode. Teddy makes a dog, and I was like going like, oh, this is like so clever, in a way.
Is that also the episode where we get Peanut Hamper? Is that the introduction to Peanut Hamper?
No, I don't think so. This is where
she did that
like
first.
Okay.
I think Boimler like is half phased or something. I don't want to jump into our like our season 1 thing, but like he's like half transported, so like he's always having that hum sound to him. Remember, and they're going to take him to the farm or whatever it was called.
Oh yeah, where he's on. Yeah.
And so like and I'm just going like, this is really, they're really riffing on the things that I love about Trek. It feels like a bunch of people who love Trek ripping on Trek. So there was never a point where it didn't come from like a great love. I mean, I would be really surprised if their writers who did not watch Trek before, simply because like I go like, oh, this lore is pretty deep. Like these are deep cuts. Whereas I feel like in other TV shows, I go like Picard. I go, I happen to know some of the writers. I go like, you're a Star Trek person, and I go, I don't think so.
I think it's I mean, I would be very interested in their process of how many like passes they do at like jokes and references, because I'm sure there are writers who are in the room who maybe aren't as like, you have to have people who I think are not well versed, because that's how you maintain like fresh, I think, ideas and concepts to bring into the show. But I would be I mean, I'm sure they all have like touch point on it in some way, shape, or form. But
like I would be very interested. Like it's.
I'd want to know. Well, because here's the thing. Like, I agree with you, Myrriah, for most shows, but I think there's two franchises in particular. Both of them begin with Star Trek and Star Wars, whose fan bases feel like they're an angry mob waiting to tear you apart if you mess with the lore, right? So it's kind of like, could you, knowing that the stakes are so high because you've got this rabid fan base that you're talking about, because we've all done podcasts with other shows and things like that, and I've done some popular shows, but this is a show where people watch an episode and they rewatch it over and over, trying to find every hidden meaning and Easter egg and reference to in the show. Lower Decks is what, 24, 25 minutes long, something like that. It's not even a half an hour, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
it's like 23 to 26 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah. And people will sit up there and watch this show and rewind it to find every possible link in it. Like,
Also, it's funny because it's like you'll say names of people and then you don't connect them in your mind. So like Garrick Bernard, who's been like gone from like writer to story editor to executive story editor for Lower Decks. Did y'all watch that show Single Drunk Female that was on like Freevee or something like that?
saw it once. I think I saw
I
the
might saw
pilot.
that episode or something. Yeah.
I thought it
Was
was
it
good.
about
I
was it about a single drunk person?
It
Perhaps
was, it
female?
was. I know the title's a little
Hmm.
confusing, but it was. But anyway, he plays like the romantic interest in that TV show.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, oh, that guy. But he's also a writer on Solar Opposites, so that I feel like that also checks.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd be interested. Garrick, are you a big Star Trek fan? What's your Star Trek history? I'm very intrigued. But yeah, I think you
Like
also have like Mike McMahon at the helm, who is just a walking, talking Rolodex of Star Trek trivia.
Yeah, no, it shows. Like, it really shows.
Mhm.
So yeah,
It definitely
I
shows.
was. So the quick answer is like I was extremely skeptical. I was jaded. Like in fact, like it was probably like I've grown to appreciate Discovery. I can. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Wait, did I say it? I'm sorry. But like
Okay.
like Lower Decks was the first new Star Trek where I go, oh, this is going to be really awesome. Like Picard, the first episode of Picard is quite, uh what you call it? It's quite good, but it doesn't feel like the Star Trek that I know. Like here's
Okay.
old man Picard, and then there's
Mhm,
like
mhm.
jumping Romulan spies, like like the Bourne Identity, but with Romulans. Like it's not something that I really see in what I think Star Trek is. But when you see Lower Decks and you go like, oh, this totally could exist, like like smart
I see
assy Lower Deckers. Yes,
I
Clyde,
see
are
what you're
you still
saying.
mad at me?
No, 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 no. I'm not mad. I see what you're saying. I do. I see what you're saying. But I think
Nicole's
there
mad
are
at me.
two. Nicola's mad at you. They're two different things, right? Because what you said was, this is Star Trek I know. And I agree. Lower Decks and Strange New World feels like Star Trek I know. It's like
Mhm.
they got back to the original formula, the thing that works, and they created something new based on that tradition. Works for me. Picard, I didn't want to talk about Picard. Um, but Discovery was new and different, and I loved it so much in the beginning that this is when it came on at like 7 o'clock on a Sunday night. And I would watch the pilot episode, watch 2 episodes, jump into my car in North Austin, drive 35, 45 minutes, 3 flights of stairs. Love you, Mike, but those stairs suck. Okay.
They-
Right. And then hang out with a bunch of Star Trek nerds till the wee hours of the night to talk about Discovery, then walk down 3 flights of stairs, get in my car, drive back up to North Austin, and then have to be at work in the morning. Like that's how much I was like, but it's worth it. right? It's worth it. Like Discovery was great, but it was
Clyde,
different.
you do sound like, when you try to tell your parents about something that's like really hard, and then they're just like, oh, in my day, we had to walk uphill both ways.
Yeah, I know. I mean, Myrriah,
In
I know
like the
you.
nicest way
Hold up.
possible. I also did that. Yeah.
I'm saying, and you'll say the stairs were dark. It was
They were creepy.
kind of creepy. It was super
And it
creepy.
felt like an elementary school because it was like the room above like a church Sunday school, which is also very funny to me.
It was very weird. And like you were like, hey, we're in here and we're gonna record, and at any point somebody could come in here and chop us up, and that'll be okay, I guess. Because
it's fine for the story. For the story. It'll be a really great true crime podcast at some point. The recordings of the nerds who were murdered above a church.
Listen, our true crime podcast about the murder of a podcast. Like that'd work.
I'm sure that's already a TV show.
Sure.
But I wanted to dive in. So we got an exclusive clip of Lower Decks on Star Trek Day last week, which we get to see Tendi going a little undercover moment and is in cahoots with her sister. What did y'all think of our little sneak peek of Tendi really pirating it up?
Well, I have a not so low key crush on Tendi. Like I don't know if I mean like that's so
I'm with you, Paul. I'm actually with you.
I don't know. Like some people might be Mariner people. I am a Tendi person.
I'm gonna be honest. It didn't start out that way, but I got there. So I'm with you.
Once you saw Tendi with the sword, it was all over.
It might have been. Yeah. No, I think it was before that.
No, like,
Tendi's like that hot nerd. Like
she's the mistress of the winter, whatever.
You had me, mistress.
I keep wanting to say the Winter Soldier, and I know that's not it, so I have to stop myself from saying it that way.
I want to say Winter Solstice, and that's not it either.
We'll get it by the end of the season. But I'm really excited for this next season. I thought the clip was really fun. Classic Lower Decks. It's still full of jokes, but also action and adventure. I love Tendi trying to get all of her cohort to not kill people, which was like a very Tendi moment.
Yeah. Like you go, Clyde.
I was gonna say one of my favorite moments in that is where one of the soldiers is pulling on his golden like nose thing, and she says, "I've always wanted one of these." It just makes me laugh. She was like, "Can I have it?" She was like, "Oh, no."
And then when he's just like, "It's prescription."
Yes. I was like, "Oh man," I couldn't stop laughing at that.
Like one of the things that I really liked about that clip is like it has first the wide shot of the ship, right? And if I'm not mistaken, that ship was first introduced in an episode where basically the Enterprise winds up at a colonist planet that's been destroyed, except for like these two people. And it turns out that this ship was by an advanced alien race that that they were called the Husnak, and they were more advanced, and they had shields that were like super amazing and blah 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 blah. The point was like one of the things that Star Trek does is it reuses models. So here's this animation where like you can pick anything.
Like, we're gonna reuse a model. Like
no, and it's not like they had to recreate this used model. So
yeah, because
because it doesn't exist digitally. So like so I'm going like, oh, this is hilarious in the fact that they made a choice to do this with something that like is completely irrelevant, that only like like super nerds would pick up on, like who's seen like all of like Enterprise, not Enterprise. Anyway, it was just it was a very like deep cut detail that I was very appreciative of.
Yeah, very like callbacks to like early next gen, early callbacks to TOS about the reuse of the models. Yeah,
I think the thing I love though is that maybe it's the Star Trek nerd in me, but it's like a 2-minute clip. Like it's a short clip. It's not even that clip.
But it's so dense with like Easter eggs and like
So I found myself like with it up on one screen and
Wikipedia.
Star Trek Alpha on another,
Yeah.
Memory Alpha on another
Yeah.
screen. And I looked up and I just realized that I went down this rabbit hole of trying to figure out what the Lust Idol was and had it shown up. And like I was just like, but that's what's so great about Lower Decks is they put the stuff in there and you're like, where's that from? And I've seen this somewhere and what happens? And it feels like an extension of all the Trek that you've known with new content. And at one point I just looked up and I was like, you've got to stop. Like at this point, you should get back to work. Like, stop. Just stop. Right. So yeah.
It's they're always done. So I always love when I get to find I try to spot as many Easter eggs as I can, but I know before pod episodes, especially for Lower Decks, I'm scouring all the blogs. I'm like, I know there's nerdier nerds than I who have been able to spot even more, and our nerd powers combined, we are Captain Planet. We really will figure it out.
Like that. Let's go.
Okay, so y'all, we're going to keep it kind of short today because our plan is to like build up that excitement. We're really stoked for season 5 and lay out our plan for coverage of the past season. So we don't want to do a full rewatch just because there isn't enough time. So instead, we're going to talk about some of our favorite moments and episodes from each season week to week. So starting next week, we'll do season 1. The following week will be season 2. And then the week after that, we'll do season 3 and 4 together so that we can do the premiere on the 24th. The other thing of note is next week as well, unfortunately, is the week of the premiere. Our schedules have made it so that a Thursday night live stream does not work, but we are going to tape in advance. And so there will be stuff on YouTube and the episodes will be up on the Thursday so that you have your companion. But what that does mean is we want to hear from you in preparation. So our Patreon members, we would love to hear messages in the menagerie for next week. What are some of your favorite moments from season 1 of Star Trek Lower Decks? Because we want to talk about them. And then in preparation for the premiere, we'll try to see if we can grab some questions from the menagerie. But unfortunately, we are going to tape that the Wednesday before. So we will do our best without your commentary, which we will really miss.
7.
But 7?
7.
What's 7?
That's how many peanut hamper references I expect to have
at least
as we're talking about our favorite episodes.
I'm pretty sure it'll just be my favorite episode controversially. I don't want to say it yet. I was like, we might have to dedicate a good portion to the episode where Peanut Hamper goes to the bird planet.
Wow. My guess is this is going to devolve into the best Peanut Hamper episodes of each season.
Maybe that's the Patreon episode this month. Do we do our favorite Peanut Hamper moments?
Oh, love it.
For Patreon. But y'all let us know. We're really excited to dig in for season 5. I know they are already filming the next season of Strange New Worlds. So that hopefully means that will be coming fast and furiously along. They've already started shooting Academy, which looks really fun. Paul Giamatti looks like he's having the best of time in Toronto shooting Academy. So I think that'll be really exciting when that all comes out.
I was looking at clips of Section 31 today too.
I know. Did they ever tell us when that's actually coming? Did they give us a full release date?
I saw something that said soon. That's all I saw.
It's always soon. Just tell us. I'll just make sure that I'm not lying. Also, I wanted to plug, I know tonight, if you missed their live stream, our pals over at Strange New Pod, we're having some folks on, including Don Lewis of Lower Decks, to promote the Women of Star Trek panel that's raising funds for the Kamala Harris presidential run. I think amongst other nonprofits that are helping to get out the vote. So if you want to go check out their video after us, you can get some of that fun behind the scenes and some chit chat with them. They're continuing their coverage of Prodigy on their streams. And then, there's lots of Trek nerd stuff about getting out the vote and getting registered and helping fundraise and, help us make sure we, don't have to mine Latinum in the future.
And if you're one of our patrons, then you could check out the picture of me and Don Lewis hanging out.
Yeah, Don Lewis. Yeah, they have not announced when Section 31 movie is coming. Boo.
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 Boo. Tell us, people. Yeah, that's anything else to add for this evening. We're gonna keep it short and sweet, and we'll dive into season 1 of Lower Decks next week with our favorite moments.
I'm good. That's all I got today. Sorry, guys.
We're gonna do it to it.
Yeah, I'd say, Paul, the more I see Tindy, the more I want to look at Rutherford and going, dude, what are you doing? Make a move.
I don't know. I don't know. I think like I think Rutherford like might be totally fine with them being friends. Like just because someone's hot doesn't mean you have to make a move on them. It doesn't necessarily mean that. Like sometimes friendship is totally fine. I mean, look at you and me. Like you as
you are hot, and I'm cool with
as
it.
much
so,
as you like you've never crossed that line, and then I don't think we have to. I think it's totally fine. Like it's acknowledged, it's said, it's known but not said.
I mean, it
keeps the dynamic tension on the podcast. Yeah. Like
you
we need to go
keep
more.
the tension.
Okay.
And that note, you can visit us at StarTrekPod.co to find links to our Patreon and other places to subscribe, rate, review, and share the show. We really appreciate everyone who helps us out. Thank you, Karen, for helping to just run the disaster space that is our account over on X for announcements. I appreciate you so much. I'm trying to be better about posting on the Instagram. I did it today. I actually remembered. I'm very proud of myself. We will see you all next week for season 1 of Lower Deck favorite moments. Let us know what you think your favorite moments are at the Patreon Slack channels. Well, until next time, live long and prosper. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Laters.